Now, as the year winds down, there is hope that things would improve in the new year. But with the COVID-19 pandemic and its impact on the way of life, many uncertainties around different sectors in the country. Health, the economy, agriculture, and many industries have all borne a fair share of this challenging year. Farmers in Oyo State are already predicting a bleak year ahead of the maize farming. They are alerting Nigerians that a scarcity of maize looms in 2021 following loss suffered in the outgoing year. According to them, failed flood forecast, drought and lack of government input led to the loss of millions of naira in the planting season, and as such, Nigerians should brace up. Well, joining me is African Farmer Mogaji, CEO, Farm Credit and X-Ray Farm. Compliments of the season. Thanks for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
Thank you for having me.
Now, farmers are already predicting a bleak year 2021 for maize especially. And one wonders, the government had put strategies in place to address this in the first place. Is this going to say that the measures put in place by government did not achieve the desired result, or something went wrong along the way?
Well, yes, government did invest and put strategies in place, but the monitoring and evaluation, which ought to be an ongoing process, was not effective.
Right.
And so at the end of the day, because strategies can change, based on realities. So it was just what they set out to do that they tried to implement, but it was not adjusted to the realities on ground.
What were those realities we'd like for you to touch on?
So the realities was that climate-smart technologies was not embraced. Climate change is real. And so most of the inputs were not climate smart. When I say climate smart, I mean you have something like some seeds of maize that is nitrogen efficient, that is also drought tolerant. So those seeds and inputs are a bit on the higher side, but that was not what was embraced. So good design, beautiful implementation strategy, but the realities of what was given to the farmers and also what was available vis-a-vis the challenge of COVID, So they didn't match it together. And also irrigation. We're quite limited with irrigation. And so some of these strategies, most of the irrigation projects were not fully embraced.
Well, how aware is government about all of these realities that you have mentioned? Because there was always a forecast of the drought, the rainfall, the flooding, and all of that. And one wonders what the level of engagement across the board of stakeholders, if I may use the word, what was the level of engagement such that we all know what to put in place to ensure that we avert what is seemingly being said now? Well,
I always say that there's a gap in synergizing with the ministries and also with the stakeholders. So it's not only government, even the private sector. Right. We're not working together. Associations don't work together. I mean, national associations don't work together. Because if National Association of Rice, Tomato, Cassava, Maize, if all of them work together and have one position, as against trying to get out of the national cake, right, we would have one voice going to the federal government.
And that will address issues.
That will address issues because they all have the foundational issues. So Poultry Association of Nigeria, Maize Association should be talking together, should be giving one position to government, because the output of maize is input for poultry. So we need them to be talking together. Government also needs to pay attention, and especially the people at the helm of affairs. They need to be people who have some form of commercial exposure. Because as it is now, you can't, it's not business as usual.
Absolutely.
So you can, before you can have just a career person in civil service. Right now, the career person needs to have, or the person at the helm of affairs needs to have some commercial exposure to know how to, manage affairs. So it's not policy and implementation. It is you being flexible, you being agile, to be able to adapt to current situations. So when there was drought, there was too much rain in June. The normal thing is that drought follows. And so when all these interventions came in, the input, like I said earlier, were not flowing with the realities
on the ground. Yes.
On the ground. And don't forget that there was also this threat of locust coming into the northern belt.
Yeah.
That, let me use the word, God just saved us.
Very important. Yeah.
You know, so there was threats to the food security, especially with grains, maize in particular. You know, so we need to pay attention to maize. Yes, we paid attention to rice, but maize, we need to pay attention to maize because maize affects the whole ecosystem more than rice.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because maize is what we use in the cereals.
Yes.
That's one. Maize is what infants feed up. Absolutely. When they are weaned from their mothers. And maize affects all the livestock. So all the value chains, maize affects them.
So it is very key for us to pay attention to it. And now some are suggesting, because you mentioned that there is also another type of maize, which some institutes, that's the Institute for Agricultural Research in Ebuzari, is asking for the adoption of teller maize. That, you know, can tolerate drought and resist insect penetration, so to speak. But do you subscribe to this?
You see, it's amazing to know that we don't need to bring anything from abroad.
Okay.
My first degree is in agriculture.
Okay.
And I also schooled in Moore Plantation, a research institute. Everything we need is
right
lying on the shelves in the research institutes. The researchers have done so much. It would amaze you that one of the new breeds that a seed company launched about 4 years ago was actually developed like 20-something years ago.
Wow.
Left on the shelf. So we really just need to support these researchers and match them with commercialization. And we don't need anything new. It's just that we don't have people who know what to do and how to do it.
So that's where the problem lies.
That's where the problem is.
Leadership.
Leadership. Everything we need. About 10 years ago, I went to Ghana in search of opportunities for 2 weeks. I came back with a type of maize called QPM, quality protein maize. That maize helps livestock mature 2 weeks ahead of normal schedule, especially livestock that is meant for flesh. Guess what? When I came here and I was telling my colleagues in the research institutes who specialize in maize about my new findings, he went in and brought the Nigerian version that had been adapted. They had varieties there.
Wow.
And everything is available. The human capital that is required is available. However, the capacity, human capacity to manage projects when you want to invest is not available.
That's another thing.
That's another ballgame. But what we need is there. We only need, there's so much in this country. There's so much just begging to be taken. But if you have people who don't know, policy advisors who don't know, then they will tell you bring from Thailand. Any new thing they see abroad because they travel abroad.
These things are laying in shape.
Everything we need is here. Everything is here. We just need to scale. We need to believe in our people more than foreigners. And guess what? The people we don't believe in, the researchers, the lecturers, well, not all lecturers, you know, but the researchers in the research institutes, these are people that they go on sabbatical. They call them to do these projects abroad.
Right.
They do these things, but we don't value them. So one of the things that I think needs to be happening is for government to begin to say, throw a challenge, to say, okay, we'll give X amount of money for whoever comes out with this. You will find out that they will dust it off one shelf and win the prize.
But how are those who know engaging government on these things that they know about? What is their level of communication with government? Because on the one hand, someone has to come out to say, this thing, we have it somewhere, and, you know, engage government based on that.
Now, you see, some weeks ago I was here, and before I was interviewed, somebody also was talking.
Right.
And gave some analysis. I'm like, really? Are you in this country?
Right.
You know, in Agric. But he advises, is on a committee that advises the president. But the real players are not there. So no matter how you write, no matter how you try to communicate, until they get to the stakeholders, and the stakeholders are reachable. They're reachable. So the people they put in charge must have commercial. One mistake we do is we appoint academics, professors and co. They have the knowledge, but they must be merged. Either the professor is heading the committee and the people implementing different functions, they don't report to each other. Because what happens is you have this HND, BSc controversy. So that issue comes into the food security of Nigeria. The people who know how to do the jobs have HNDs. Right. Foundational. The people who know more of the strategies and have the BSc. It's meant to be complementary.
Absolutely.
But it's not complementary here. So all these things affect.
But that shouldn't be difficult to do.
But it's very difficult. It's very difficult. Leadership. Take, for instance, next year with all the predictions about food security challenges, I've not seen implementation now to take care of that. But guess what? Is the president or the presidency interested? Yes. Are they committed? Yes. But the people they have, like irrigation, the facilities we have currently, we've not utilized them.
Isn't there some way the state governments can come in? Because they are closer to the stakeholders, if I may use that word.
Now, most of the governments, from my experience, and when I say most, I mean 70% of them are still paying lip service to food security. Where you see, take for instance, Ogun State, the governor is backing the commissioner, so you're getting results.
All right.
You are getting Cross River now, Governor Yade, is backing it up. Where you see the governors back up the commissioners, you see results. And most of the commissioners now, gradually, they are bringing in experts. So I expect also new developments in Lagos because of the new commissioner who is experienced, exposed, and has a private sector background. Ekiti also just appointed an agric expert. So bottom line, we need agric experts that the governors will throw their weight. We need less of federal government if things must work. Because private investors are looking to talking to the governors and commissioners direct, not federal.
Of course.
So we need the governors, they still don't understand the threat of food security vis-a-vis climate change. We have COVID. That's a new reality. If there's a pest that shows up, there's a challenge. And this year, another pest showed up that has not made media yet. It's called dieback. What is dieback? Especially for maize. When you grow the crop, when you plant the crop, within 10 days, the crop dies back. It germinates and dies back. So what that means, you have to plant another seed. You have sprayed double your production cost. But this is not. But a place in Ogun State is heavily ravaged this year. So Oyo State spoke. Some Ogun also is experiencing this, and we have it across the country. When there's no data pool where you can get all this.
You can't address this.
You can't address this. So they suffer in silence, and it spreads to the whole nation gradually.
Now, you talked about the threat of food security. Now, with this, I'd like for you to touch on that. With this projection being made by farmers, what picture do you see if it is not addressed quickly?
Now, the challenge is, if we do not address this, it will affect the processors the most. Why? Because dollar has gone up. Even if they want to import, they don't have a comparative advantage. The prices will go up, so big processors and final consumers. And so when the prices go up, there's a threshold to how people can buy how much. So that means they will cut down jobs. And we want the processors to stay so that they can keep the jobs coming. So we need climate smart and new technologies adopted. One of the things is we don't need big tractors. We bring in big tractors. We need policies to be stable. Take, for instance, somebody signed an agreement, and I'll mention his name, Nijukas, invested heavily in signing a contract to bring tractors cheaper. And at the end of the day, what happened? They increased tariff without making it public. Another organization invested heavily in tomato processing. It's supposed to be zero tariff, but it was made 5% on arrival. So we need policies. But how would we get the good policies? We need the real players in there.
Very important. The real players have to be in there with the government. African Farmer Mogaji, CEO, Farm Credit and X-Ray Farm, we must thank you for your time on the program.